Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
I'm your host, Mirko. We explore how data science and AI drive real business impact, straight from the leaders making it happen. Today, data contracts as executive controls, a C-level playbook for trustworthy data. If you manage decisions that depend on data, metrics, models, or customer experiences, this episode is for you. Here's the one-liner. Data contracts let executives convert engineering obligations into business controls that reduce risk, improve trust, and align teams around measurable outcomes. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll walk you through what contracts are, how to define consumer-driven SLAs, how to implement checks without killing agility, and which leadership moves actually make contracts stick. First, a quick executive perspective. In my work with CEOs, CDOs, and platform leads, I see the same patterns across industries. Finance needs timely, auditable inputs for risk models. Retail depends on timely inventory signals for pricing and promotion. Healthcare has regulatory and patient safety demands that make data lineage non-negotiable. In each case, the technical problem, missing rows, late arrivals, silent schema changes, is the same, but the impact, sponsorship, and willingness to enforce controls are wildly different. That gap is where data contracts live. They translate consumer expectations into producer obligations. They make the implicit explicit. Rather than saying, our pipelines are reliable, you define who depends on this dataset, what properties it must satisfy, how we measure it, and what happens when we miss the mark. These are governance levers that belong in the executive playbook, not just the backlog of platform tickets. Let's get concrete. What goes into a consumer-driven data contract? Start with three core elements: consumer intent, measurable SLAs, and lineage. Consumer intent documents the decisions that rely on the data, for example, daily churn model retraining, billing reconciliation, or real-time personalization. SLAs define the observable properties: freshness, completeness, and accuracy. Lineage ties the dataset to upstream sources and transformations, so you can answer where did that value come from during an incident. On the SLA metrics, freshness equals maximum acceptable delay between source appearance and dataset availability. Completeness equals % of expected records or fields present. Accuracy equals tolerance for mismatches against an authoritative source or sanity checks. Don't over-engineer. Pick thresholds that reflect business risk. For a billing system, freshness might be 15 minutes and completeness 99.99%. For an analytics sandbox, freshness could be 24 hours and completeness 95%. Context matters. Add required metadata: contact owner, consumer contact, business criticality, decision frequency, and a prioritized runbook. Keep the contract lightweight, 3 to 5 fields plus the SLAs, so teams will actually write and maintain them. And pair each contract with lineage metadata, transformations, source systems, and upstream owners. If you can't trace a metric back to its source in under an hour, remediation gets long and expensive. Now, prioritization. Not every dataset deserves gold-level SLAs. Prioritize by decision impact, revenue exposure, regulatory risk, customer experience, or model performance sensitivity. A simple heuristic: high-frequency decisions with direct revenue or compliance consequences get strict SLAs. Exploratory analytics and internal BI get lighter guardrails. This is an executive decision. Tie contract tiers to measurable KPIs like revenue at risk or expected time to detection costs. Implementation. Contracts belong in the delivery pipeline. Integrate checks into CI/CD so breaking a contract fails the build for downstream consumers. Surface contract health in observability dashboards alongside business metrics. Use automated alerts and a graded escalation path. Automated retry. Notify producer. Notify consumer. And then route to a cross-functional on-call when an incident exceeds an impact threshold. Automation catches the obvious problems. Governance handles the ambiguous ones.
Trade-offs matter. If you make contracts too strict, you create friction and slow innovation. If they're too lax, they're meaningless. Use staged enforcement. Start with detection and dashboards, then move to soft SLAs with notifications, and finally to hard enforcement for top-tier contracts. Always couple enforcement with an exception process, a documented time-boxed waiver mechanism, so product teams can move when necessary without creating permanent technical debt.
Leadership and impact. Make a business owner accountable for each contract. This is non-negotiable. The owner owns the decision that depends on the contract and the cost of failure. Measure contract effectiveness with a small set of KPIs, percentage of SLAs met, mean time to detect, mean time to repair, and estimated cost of bad data incidents. Report these metrics to the executive team monthly and tie them to clear business outcomes, retention, revenue protection, model performance, or regulatory compliance. Governance guardrails. Create a small steering group with product, analytics, engineering, and legal to arbitrate disputes and prioritize contract changes. Use procurement to require vendor SLAs that map to your internal contract tiers. When selecting third-party data or vendors, insist on lineage, documented metadata, and verifiable delivery guarantees. Contracts change the questions you ask vendors at procurement time.
Looking ahead, as teams federate, contracts become the contract language between domains. They're also central to responsible AI. Models are only as trustworthy as the data contracts that feed them. Over the next 12 to 24 months, executives should institutionalize a contract lifecycle, invest in lightweight observability for contract health, and link contract metrics to business dashboards. That's how you move from reactive firefighting to predictable, auditable controls.
2 immediate actions to take this week. First, pick one high-impact domain, billing, risk, or customer activity, and define a 3-metric SLA, freshness, completeness, accuracy, with a named business owner. Second, instrument a fail-fast contract check in CI for that dataset, so you detect violations before they reach production. These moves create a proof point you can scale from. That's the difference between models and value.
Final reflection. Data contracts are not a developer checkbox or a compliance checkbox alone. When done correctly, they're executive controls, concise, measurable, and tied to decisions that matter. They reduce risk, speed incident resolution, and align teams around predictable outcomes. Build them light, measure their business impact, and evolve enforcement gradually. If you found this episode valuable, subscribe and share it with your network. And let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm Mirko Peters. We'll be back with more conversations on how data science and AI create real business impact. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.